Hey guys. So we're gonna get this started here. We got Carrie with Child Enrichment. We just got to listen to Against Malaria Foundation, which was great. Carrie here is the founder of childenrichment.org. She's been here with SuperDoge actually since day one. So she was one of the first charities, or was the first charity to be incorporated into the 2% tax from every transaction to charities. And they've been great, and we've loved having them and working with them. And as a community member of SuperDoge, I'm more than excited that a lot of this BNB that was donated, almost 600 BNBs, across the three charities, was in your guys' pocket. I think it brought some really real value. And basically, Carrie's just going to kind of give an overview of child enrichment, an impactful story or two. And I'm going to stop talking, mute my mic, and let her go here. And if anybody has questions, feel free to shoot them in the chat or ask them when appropriate, and just go from there. So welcome, Carrie. Thanks for joining us.
Great. Thanks so much for having me. And as always, thank you so much to this community. You have been so great to all the charities and even the new charities you're talking to. This is a really great concept, and we're glad to be a part of it. So Child Enrichment is a nonprofit in Augusta, Georgia, and we serve 9 counties in our service area. And what we do is we provide a voice and a path forward for local children that have been abused or neglected or trafficked. We're not just any other nonprofit. We've helped over 24,500 local children through our 2 programs, which are our Child Advocacy Center and our CASA program, which stands for Court Appointed Special Advocates. What our team is doing is really changing the lives and creating a better path forward for children. We've had a proven track record of success with kids that have completed the programs we offer. And really, we try to just make the community a safer place for kids to grow up in. I'll explain our programs a little bit because sometimes they might not be things people are that familiar with. So our CASA program, which is Court Appointed Special Advocates, what we do is we recruit and train community volunteers to advocate for children in foster care. If you think of the foster care system anywhere in the country, there is they'll work with a CPS worker or foster care worker through the Department of Human Services or DFACS, Department of Family and Children Services. But those DFACS workers may have 50 kids on their caseload. What CASAs do is they provide one-on-one advocacy for that child. And they're the eyes and ears for the judge to provide recommendations on what they think should happen. So big picture things like if a child should be reunited and go back home if the parents have worked their case plan, or if they think a child should go move towards adoption and termination of parental rights. But then also little things like think of your home and imagine if you went to work or school or somewhere today and you just thought that's what you're doing and somebody came up to you and said, hey, you're coming into foster care now. You don't have any of the stuff that your favorite outfits, your pets, anything like that. That's all still at home. We'll advocate for a kid to get visits with their puppy, or to be able to go to the church that they grew up in as opposed to maybe a different religious church that their foster parents are from. So we advocate for those little things as well because we want to make this as less traumatic as possible. We know that if a kid has a CASA volunteer, they're twice as likely to find a permanent home, and they're going to spend half the amount of time in foster care. This is important because we know if you're looking at like criminal justice reform and mostly in the US, but right now, that's kind of what I'm mostly going to be talking about. We know 80% of people that are incarcerated have spent time in foster care. So we want to make sure we can limit that time or even eliminate kids coming into foster care. So we serve about 500 kids each year through that program. And then our other program is our Child Advocacy Center. That's where when there's if anybody has ever seen Law and Order SVU, sometimes there's child advocacy centers on there, and it's not at all like the TV show portrays, but some of it is similar. So if there is a case of child abuse, so say a child is molested or trafficked, meaning some sexual acts happen to them in exchange for money, then a child will come to our center and receive what's called a forensic interview. That's where we ask non-leading, non-suggestive questions and find out from a child what has happened to them. law enforcement and DFACs are in another room watching that interview happen. Sometimes people think like, oh, are you guys a state agency then? No, we're not. We're a private nonprofit. And that's by design that we're a neutral person doing this interview. And then we offer free trauma counseling to kids because we want them to heal from abuse. Last year, we served 1,087 kids. And we know that if those children do not receive counseling, they're likely to go on to have adverse childhood experiences, which can impact their health later on in life. There might be predestined to have drug use or incarceration, like I had talked about. So it's really important that treatment happens, and we offer all those services for free. So what has been so incredibly helpful is we have used the funding we received so far from SuperDoge to put it towards a capital campaign we're doing for a new facility. Our numbers of kids served has increased by 60% in the past 7 years, and we do not have the space to adequately provide the services in our area. So we are close to being able to break ground. We're anticipating breaking ground in January, and we will get back with the community, the SuperDoge community, depending on how much money we've had for naming rights. So already, I think we're at $83,000 we've received from the SuperDoge community. So what we're going to do is we'll be able to name a room after this coin and have the name on the room outside of it. So we still have a little ways to go before we can break ground, but that's just a preview of kind of what we do. I do want to tell you one success story, or we've had many, but we work with kids, so it's sometimes hard to be able to use a child's story because of confidentiality. But I started at Child Enrichment in 2010, and this is the first family I worked with when I was here. And now these two young women are adults, and they've come forward and said they want to talk about how Child Enrichment has helped them because not enough people know about the work we do. These two sisters were sexually abused for years by their stepfather. He would receive money from his friends to be able to have sex with these young girls. It started when they were 7 and 8, and it went on for many years. They came and received a forensic interview where we got the statement from them, and their stepfather is now in prison for life, and the other men involved have also gone to prison. But the most important thing is they received counseling. They came here for counseling for as long as they needed to, and we really worked through some of the dynamics about child abuse. I will, when we're done here, I'll put in our message the link so you guys can see the news article, the news story that went on about this case, and you can hear firsthand from them the impact Child Enrichment had. But that is what it's like for the over 1,000 kids we work with. We take kids from some of the darkest days and make sure that they know there's brighter days ahead. So that is what we do, and I would love to answer any questions about it that you may have.
Hey, Carrie.
Hello.
That was truly moving.
Thank you.
It's such a key role that you guys play at the moment in modern society, especially with the uptake in, illicit activity towards children. Are you guys focused solely on the United States then, in terms of your charity work at this moment in time?
So we are. So we're in a local area here, but we're a member of, so child advocacy centers are pretty much worldwide. So there's some other places that may do similar stuff in your local community and things like that, but we're a area focused in the community we serve. So we serve clients just in this area of Georgia, these 9 counties, but there's people that do similar work to us across the whole world.
Understood. And in respect to the funds and their utilization, I'm assuming that, it opens doors outside of Georgia in respect to the people that work in correlation with you guys. Is that correct?
Exactly. So one of the big things that we're doing is more prevention. So that is, we have prevention on our social medias, more awareness. We help. We're going to be doing a new program where we train therapists in the TFCBT model. So that's the model of therapy we do. But most of the direct clients we work with are just in this area.
Understood. Well, I think it's it's pivotal that an organization or a charity like yourselves receives the support it needs, because I find that the numbers are unfortunately increasing rapidly internationally in respect to children being abused. And I, for one, I fully support what you guys are doing, and I'm behind you guys. You got my vote.
Thank you. We really appreciate it. And I mean, the Olympics are going on right now. And unfortunately, the US has been in the news for the past several years when it comes to US gymnastics. And there's a perfect example of how prevalent it is, child sexual abuse, and how it really affects everyone. The statistics say 1 in 10 children will be sexually abused by the age of 18. So if you think of that number, that is astronomical. And I guarantee everybody listening here knows somebody that has experienced child sexual abuse. Maybe they don't know it because the person hasn't told yet, but based on those statistics, we know. And I think it's really important that people are aware that most of the time kids are abused by somebody they and their family know and trust, which is what makes child sexual abuse such a difficult thing to combat.
And
Agreed.
I think giving kids a voice is definitely needed. And at the end of the day, I think those statistics might even, like, those are probably the statistics, but I feel like it might even be more common than that. And that is the hardest thing, like, to have those kids be able to explain what's going on and bring that out, and then have the actual help after. The therapy is the key to be able to kind of move on with anything, any kind of hurdle you go through life. But something as traumatic as this, and for a child, I love that you're giving them the follow-up, and that therapy part is a big focus of it, I guess, for that, and just giving an outlet for these kids, and actually looking at not just throwing money at a problem to kind of do a little bit, but actually working with the people one-on-one. I like that part of it as well.
Yeah. And when I send the link to the news article, you'll hear it. And it's so interesting to see that after this aired about a year and a half ago, we got so many calls because of, like, one mom called and said her son had disclosed to her that he was abused, and he just didn't know there were places like child enrichment out there for him to go to talk to somebody. So that was really eye-opening for us and made us realize, like, we need to do a better job of just not just marketing or targeting in our outreach, like donors, because obviously we need to be able to pay our bills, but also just awareness. So victims who have not said anything yet know that we are here and our job is to help them and believe
Absolutely.
them.
Have you seen a change in the last, say, even 5 years or 3 years, of how much more openness there is, and how people are a little bit? I feel like just in society, personally, I've seen a lot of people kind of change from the mindset where they don't want to talk about things like that. It's not the place, and a lot more people are kind of embracing that as, okay, I'm not alone. This is something that has happened to millions of people. Have you seen a
Mhm.
change in society, I guess, from your end?
Yeah, we have. And a couple things I think about that. One, it's just become more prevalent. And obviously, I'm in the US, so I'm talking about US related things, but there have been stories related to Sandusky, the Penn State football coach, and Larry Nasser, the gymnast doctor. So it's been more, oh, I'm not alone, like, oh, this isn't something like wrong with me. So kids have been able to see that. And we have done a good job. We still have a ways to go. I'm a therapist by background, but the stigmatization behind receiving mental health, like, we've come a really long way with that. So I think it makes it not like, oh gosh, I go see a therapist and there's something wrong with me. And it's now become a little bit more of like, oh, I see a therapist because these things have happened to me and I need to learn coping skills. So we've done a better job. We still have room to grow. But I think that has made a big change, which has made it where people are more open to talk about it.
Yeah, I understand. I think the issue is, although it's great what you're doing in Georgia, I believe you said you're from, and
Yeah.
wherever you have an out. I love the aftercare, that you're offering, that Keith touched on. I think that's absolutely paramount to both short and long-term success in dealing with human beings, which is very, very different to dealing with a product that doesn't have a personality or an opinion. So here we're talking about emotions, we're talking about the past, present, future. You're talking about people, going through the most vulnerable years of their life and suffering. And I feel like, if anything needs a spotlight on it, it's a project or an organization or charity like yours. But it's not just focused in the States. Unfortunately, it's a very, very global issue. And even, I heard you just now touch on, and I heard a few of those stories in the news in regards to, certain coaches in America, or the Olympic coach. I think it was last year when that got disclosed, in regards to all of the people working in the team that he had control over. But unfortunately, there's huge networks, and there's children, being kidnapped on a daily basis in high numbers, and they end up being trafficked, and a lot of them end up in the wrong hands. Statistically speaking, we're talking about above 99% ending up, if they're still alive, they end up in the exact people's hands that we don't wish for them to be in. So we need to do something about it as a global community. So I think starting with supporting your organization or charity is absolutely pivotal.
And I think when you also touched on having separate child advocacies global, like with a one-on-one situation with people, when it gets to a global corporation standpoint, when you're looking at the huge charities where the CEOs are taking a lot, you're really losing that value. So are you able to communicate and share statistics and data with these other groups, Carrie? Is this something like, do you guys have decent networks or relationships and I guess ins with these other groups to kind of work together and see maybe if there's some common ground and common problems or whatnot, or how does that kind of work?
Yeah, we do. It's mostly in like nationally. It research wise goes more globally, but when it comes to like direct service, my view or my experience has been it kind of stops at the national level. So we are a part of the National Children's Alliance, which pretty much, it's not a child advocacy center, but it's a group of all the child advocacy centers become a member of that. So we're a member of that. We're also a member of National CASA. So that's where we can go and talk about, hey, this is what's going on in Georgia. And there's people at the meetings or at the conferences from Alaska or from California. And they're talking about what it's like for their different pockets of their community. And I'm sure, I'm just not familiar with it, but I'm sure, and I would hope that other countries had similar type setups to that, where they had a collaborative, unified approach to it. And with that, I will say, since we're members of both of those national organizations, we go through accreditation through them. So we meet standards for how we conduct our multidisciplinary teams and how we do forensic interviews and like how we handle our court advocacy. So it's not something where people can just like kind of go rogue. There's some structure to it.
Absolutely. Well, does anybody have any more questions for Carrie here? And she's also part of the group too of SuperDoge in the community. So again, shoot some messages over the next day or two or next month. It doesn't really matter. If she doesn't answer, it's probably because she's working for the charity and working on her stuff. But tag me in it and I'll make sure to forward it to her so she sees it if she isn't available at the time. But does anybody have any more questions? Go ahead and I'll mute my mic again here.
I don't have any more questions, but I did want to say thank you to Carrie for giving us a great insight into what you guys do.